This is Jerry Coleman, play-by-play voice of the Dothan High Wolves on 96.9 The Legend, and you're tuned into the Phillip Jordan podcast.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Phillip Jordan podcast. I am Phillip Jordan, in studio host and producer of Sports Football. 96.9 The Legend and Auburn writer. The last word on college football. This podcast is brought to you by Digio Strategies and Wiregrass Daily News. Coming to you on a Monday morning, as recording this on Sunday night. And wanted to drop my thoughts on what happened in Week 6 in college football over the weekend. Now, usually we will do this, a guest, and maybe some picks, some other stuff. Just a big show. This week we're going to break it up into 3 individual shows, maybe 3 15 to 20-minute podcasts, just kind of talking about some stuff. And who knows, if this does well, we may go live sometimes with these as well. Not this week. This wasn't in the cards for this week. But wow, what a weekend of college football we had. And, it was one of those weekends going into it. I mean, game day was at the Miami at Cal game. I stayed up and watched all of that on Saturday night into Sunday morning. Fantastic game there between Miami and Cal. I know a lot of debate there if that was targeting or not at the end there on Mendoza there for Cal. But you go into that weekend and you probably think, okay, this is going to be a slow weekend. Not a lot of shattering, news-breaking games are going to happen because we're all looking to the 12th and the 19th. Of course, we got the big games for this weekend, and then the following weekend, you got the Alabama-Tennessee game. We were saying, okay, you might have 2 undefeated teams in that one. And then you got the Georgia-Texas game. But the way college football works, just when we think we know, we do not know. And we did not know. And some wild, crazy stuff happened on Saturday. And, I'm not going to go in order of the games that happened. Obviously, here on this show, we focus a lot on what happens in the SEC. But we'll jump. I'm going to jump into some ACC stuff, too, as well later on here on the show. But, yeah, let's jump off. Alabama, Vanderbilt, going into this one, Alabama was favored by 23 points in this game against Vanderbilt. And I looked at it like this. And I was talking with somebody actually that morning. This was an Alabama supporter. And I told them, I said, now I did not tell him Vanderbilt was going to win. I did not think that was going to happen. But what I did think was going to happen, I did think Vanderbilt could probably put some points up on Alabama, particularly in the first half. Because one, Alabama, you're coming off an emotional high. You just did beat Georgia. And I wanted to see how Alabama would respond to that. This is a talented team. A lot of these players play for Nick Saban, but Nick Saban's not there anymore. I want to see how would Kalen DeBoer, because look, we've seen Alabama play. They're a lot more looser. They're having more fun out there. It's a different team than what they were under Nick Saban. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that is what this team is. So how would this team respond to a big win? Now you're going into an opponent. You're going to Nashville, but we all know there was more Alabama fans in Nashville than there were Vanderbilt fans. That's just how it is. It's that way all the time. Of course, a comment Nick Saban made a few years ago about that has been coming back on him over that when he said on the Pat McAfee, a year or two ago, that Vanderbilt's one of the easier places to play because you're always going to have more fans there than they are. And that's the way it was on Saturday. But I thought going into this one that Alabama's defense kind of showed some weaknesses in the second half against Georgia. But, you could also say, well, that's Georgia. That's Carson Beck, a guy that's going to be drafted first round. 5 stars all over the place. All that stuff. But I also looked at it. Diego Pavia is a dangerous guy. And as a guy, I cover Auburn for last college football. I've seen this guy when he was with New Mexico State and they went at Auburn last year, just dominated. And the thing about this game, you look at a lot of it when we get these big upsets like this, which Vanderbilt has never done anything like this before. And props to them. And I'm happy for all of them there at Vanderbilt, the fans, the coaches, the players, all of them, 100% happy for what they did. And they had this big moment. I mean, this is a moment they will talk about this 20 years down the road. They will probably have a reunion for this team and what they did against Alabama. But Diego Pavia, I mean, he played great, and this was not a fluke. I mean, a lot of times you see something like this, it was turnovers, it was fluky. Vanderbilt just outplayed Alabama. There's no way around that. I mean, Alabama could not stop the Commodores. Vanderbilt in this game was 12 of 18 on third down. That's winning football. They converted a fourth down. 418 total yards, 252 through the air, 166 on the ground, and they didn't. Of course, Vanderbilt, nope, not a lot of penalties. They only had 3 in there. They controlled the ball. Vanderbilt possessed the ball for 42 minutes and 8 seconds in this game. And that's kind of what you got to do. We kind of saw the formula with Kentucky when they beat Georgia, ball control. And then they did the same thing to Ole Miss, which equaled that win against the Rebels just last week. But Pavia was 16 to 20 for 252, 2 touchdowns. They had some big performances at wide receiver. And something I saw watching this game, I had this game on my laptop. I was watching the Auburn Georgia game on my main television. Now, this team ran for 166. I mean, Diego Pavia had 56 of them on 20 carries. Just a toughness, too, to run that many times as your quarterback against Alabama. But Eli Stowers, 113 yards in the game. I mean, Junior Sherrill had 45 and a touchdown. Big plays. I mean, this team just played well, and they did take advantage of some Alabama turnovers. Jalen Milroe with the interception, which it was off a deflection, pick 6, but that was a big moment. Then Vanderbilt goes up 13-0 in this one. There was a Jalen Milroe fumble also in this game for Alabama, and just Vanderbilt was taking advantage of any time they had an opportunity. I mean, he had the fumble there, as I said, Jalen Milroe with 9:36 there in the fourth quarter. He get fumbles, 8-yard loss. They pick it up, Vanderbilt does, and then they went on a 7-play, 53-yard drive to put touchdown up on a board when Pavia connected with Cameron Johnson for 6 yards and a touchdown. So Vanderbilt got the turnovers, but they also took those turnovers and they made something out of it. And we look at this now. Everybody's going to talk about what's wrong with Alabama, but when you look at Vanderbilt, this is just what Clark Lee has done, flipping the coaching staff, going into the portal. I mean, obviously bringing in the quarterback Diego Pavia was huge, but this is a different Vanderbilt team. I see this team as when they play Kentucky this week, they can beat Kentucky, but that's going to be a challenge for them now to kind of, come back down to earth a little bit, because you just beat Alabama, and then just the way the fans, the goalposts ended in the river and all that stuff. But on Alabama, now this is big. We'll see what Kalen DeBoer, how does he do with this team? How does he get this team to respond? They play South Carolina Saturday. It's an 11 o'clock kickoff. How do they respond? I mean, my honest opinion, would this have happened if Nick Saban was still the coach at Alabama? No, it would not. It would not have happened. That's just my personal feeling on that. I don't think this would have happened. Nick Saban would have had them ready after the Georgia game. And we got to look at something, too, with Alabama. The last 6 quarters, this defense has not been good at all. They gave up all the last week in the second half. I believe Georgia had, 7 points going into halftime. They ended up with 34. Now you're looking at this. I mean, back-to-back weeks, Alabama's given up 74 points. And are we seeing some weaknesses in this Alabama defense? Now, Jalen Milroe, and I'll say this. Now, the time of possession is kind of misleading a little bit. Not much. It still tells a story of this game. But Alabama does score very quickly, and they did in this game too, as well as they have been doing. Ryan Williams had another incredible touchdown in this one, but Milroe was fine. I mean, I think the Alabama offense was fine. I mean, he was 18-24, 310 yards, 1 touchdown. The interception was just bad luck. I'm not going to say it's fluky per se, but it was just bad luck. I mean, the offense was fine, but I think Alabama's got to look at itself in the mirror. Okay, what are we defensively? Now, I don't know how many questions we're going to get without South Carolina, because I do believe South Carolina is a very limited team offensively. So I don't know if we're going to get that question answered, but in a couple of weeks, they will play Tennessee, and that's going to be an interesting game between the two. But Vanderbilt, man, win of the weekend, win of the season so far, without a doubt. Tennessee losing to Arkansas. That was the primetime game there on ABC, you had Chris Fowler and Kurt Herbstreit calling this one. And I went into this one thinking, okay, Tennessee should take care of business, go to Arkansas. Look, Arkansas has some nice wins. They beat Auburn. They should have beat Oklahoma State. They were right there with A&M. We'll get to A&M in a second. But I thought, okay, Tennessee should take care of business here. As people know, I like their defensive front. But give Arkansas credit. They were at home. They had that crowd behind them. Winning 19-14. Taylor Green played a really good game, 19-27, 266. Their defense was really, really good, particularly in the first half, obviously, because Arkansas, you're up 3-0. At halftime, I'm looking at the score. I'm like, this can't be right. I mean, are they playing soccer or baseball here? Because Tennessee should have more on the board in this one. But the Arkansas defense in the first half played really well. But then you turn around and then you look at the game, and then Tennessee makes it 14-3 in the second half. I was like, okay, keeping up with the game. Tennessee's going to take care of business here. Dylan Sampson, 2 touchdowns in this game. They put them up 14-3. They're good there. But then Jaquindon Jackson, a 2-yard touchdown. They get within 14-10. Arkansas has to go to the other quarterback in the game, and he performed well. And Malachi Singleton in for Taylor Green. He was 2 for 3, 31 yards, but he also, the running aspect, what he could do, he had the touchdown there to give them that 19-14 lead. They could get 2-point conversion, but obviously too on that play, Tennessee allowed them to score. I mean, you watch the replay, that last line of defense is like, okay, we're going to let you go in there because Tennessee need to give their offense a chance. Nico did hit the big pass there to get them within. To be able to make a play happens all the time. College, he scrambles. There's not enough time for that. You need to just throw something in the end zone and just hope somebody comes down with it. How good is Nico right now? I mean, I think, too, that's another thing. I think we're going to put a lot of pressure on him. I think a lot of people, we know how talented he is, but I also think we're going to put some of this on him. We also got to remember this is a freshman quarterback playing here, 17, 29, 158. So this has changed things for them, too. They play Florida this upcoming week. It's going to be another thing for Josh Heupel bouncing back. How does Tennessee bounce back? But Arkansas, going into the year, you looked at this Arkansas team, you said, okay, Sam Pittman's on the hot seat. I'm even one that called it. I said by mid-season he will be fired and Bob Petrino will be the head coach. We're at mid-season. They're 4-2, 2-1 in SEC play. That's not happening. So Arkansas has done really, really well for themselves to be in this moment, to be at 4-2. But Tennessee, it's kind of like with Alabama. How do they bounce back from this? I always am intrigued how do teams respond to losses, because we're going to get into a team that responded well to one on Saturday. But I was shocked. Again, the defense of Arkansas put pressure on Nico throughout. They got to him 4 times, 4 sacks in the game. There was 4 TFLs for Arkansas in the game as well. Nico Slaughter, he had 8 total tackles. I mean, you got to give Arkansas our credit here. It's kind of like our reaction to these upsets are always what was wrong with the favorite, but we also need to look at what did the team that won, what did they do? And really for Arkansas, they go down 14-3 after being up 3-0 most way. A lot of times you see this too when the perceived less talented team or the underdog, okay, then they fall down. They scored 16 unanswered after that. That says a lot about this Arkansas team and their mental toughness. So tremendous performance by Arkansas there on Saturday. Let me get into Auburn, team I covered last one in college football, losing 31-13. If you look at the stats in this game, they're very close. I mean, if you just looked at that and you did not look at the actual score, it's okay. You probably would figure Georgia won, but you say, okay. But Auburn hung in there. Maybe they lost by a score, but no, they lose 31-13. And Auburn had opportunity. I think Auburn at times moved the ball well against the Georgia defense. No turnovers for Auburn. That was key coming in. I still say I don't think Auburn runs the ball enough. That's a problem, I think, with this team. 13 carries only for Jarquez Hunter. He had 13 for Peyton Thorne. And there was a moment in this game, too. It's 14. They're down 21-10. Opening play of the fourth quarter, 4-1, you're near field. And then Peyton Thorne, it was a read play. Now, Hugh Freeze said in the press conference after, which I know a lot of people is getting on to him for once again, in some people's eyes, throwing the player under the bus, but talked about how he was supposed to give Jarquez. And a lot of people I've seen that are really good at seeing things that maybe I don't see on the football field, that Jarquez would have got stuff. So who knows what happened, but that's what he said that should have happened. Well, that play, they're down 21-10. You go down there and you get a touchdown. It's 21-17. It's a completely different game. Now it's on your defense, make a stop, but it flips around. They get now 28-10 in this one. And I thought Auburn maybe to start the second half was going to really push Georgia in this one. Jarquez Hunter with a 38-yard touchdown there to make it 14-10. But then, Carson Beck just had a great game. 23-29, 240, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Trevor Etienne was solid, 88 yards with 2 touchdowns, but Beck was 20 of 20 on passes of 15 yards or more. So he was tremendous in this game. But in Georgia, bounce back. Way they looked against Alabama last week, coming back in the second half, and then this week bouncing back with a win. And with Auburn, they're 2-4 going to the off week. To me, my opinion, if Auburn does not turn the ball over in 3 of those losses, they're probably 5-1 going into the off week. Now they go play Missouri next after the off week, and they play Kentucky. I think those are teams. I would pick those teams against Auburn right now, but I wouldn't be shocked if Auburn beats those teams either, because I don't think Missouri is that great. We'll get to them in a second. And Kentucky is limited offensively. You can say Auburn is too as well. So I wouldn't expect many points when Auburn travels to Lexington in a few weeks. But they're in a tough spot. Now, obviously, Auburn got great news this week in recruiting side with Deuce Knight coming in quarterback. And I'll just touch on that a little bit. He will not be the starter next year. I know a lot of people are excited about that, but he's not going to be the starting quarterback next year. Hugh Freeze is still going to go into the portal and find another quarterback to at least play for next year before you're ready for Deuce Knight to become the starter. Auburn, I think, is better than they were last year. Just the turnovers. The turnovers have really ruined this season for them. 2-4, 0-3. Honestly, it's kind of a deal where you're kind of just playing for next year. If we're being honest, you're just looking at it from that standpoint. But we'll see. We'll see. They get the off week. They don't play next week. They get a week off. We'll see what Auburn does. In Georgia, just picking yourself up, getting a win, winning 31-13 in this one. Ole Miss. And I'm not going to say too long on Ole Miss, but it was kind of staying that theme of teams getting up after a loss. Of course, they get upset by Kentucky last week, 20-17. They took care of South Carolina 27-3. The game was never in doubt. They jumped up pretty quickly in this one. It was 24-3 at halftime. Just Ole Miss just finding a way, just kind of that bounce back. And then now they get ready to travel to Baton Rouge, who LSU was off this week. So that's an advantage of LSU. But get that win, 27-3. Look good offensively, look good defensively, and now you go into that matchup with LSU. Florida, I watched that on Saturday night, and Graham Mertz was consistent. He was solid, 19-23, 179. But what stuck out to me in this game with Florida was their defense. Their defense was really, really good in this one. They put a lot of pressure on KJ Jefferson, the quarterback for Central Florida, in this one. He did not play good either. 12 of 22 for 165. One interception, of course, Gus Malzahn on offense. They look very similar to what we're used to seeing. They limited Central Florida's rush game to only 108 in the game. The team averaged 2.7 yards per carry. And KJ Jefferson never really made a big impact on that one. They had 5 sacks in the game and 7 tackles for loss. So Florida up front played really, really well. So I kind of wonder when they play Tennessee, can they multiply that? Can they use that now as they match up with Tennessee? For us, another team, they're 3-2. We all know the pressure on Billy Napier to figure some stuff out with this team. We did see DJ Lagway in the game too. He was 4 for 4 for 50 yards. Not really much of a run game for Florida in this one. 130 yards, had 54 from Montrell Johnson. Jaden Ball had 30, and Jacoby Jackson had 25 as well. But their defense was really good in this game. That's what stuck out to me with Florida's win over Central Florida on Saturday. And now we get into Missouri and Texas A&M. This game got ugly fast. It was 24-0 at halftime, and then A&M scored pretty quickly There's a start the second half to get up 31-0. Connor Wigman made his return to the lineup in this one, and he was fantastic. 18 to 22, 276. He didn't throw any touchdowns. Uh, Le'Veon Moss, man, the running game. If they get a running game like this, 138 and 3 touchdowns, 12 carries, he averaged 11.5 yards per carry. Mari Daniels, too, had 2 rushing touchdowns. So the run game was tremendous for A&M for 236. And what they have with their defense, if this is something that can be regular, look out for A&M. They could definitely be a player in the SEC. My biggest concern with Missouri coming into the year, how is the run game going to be? Cody Schrader obviously not being there anymore. They bring in Nate Noel, Marcus Carroll. Of course, Norrell came from App State. Carroll came from Georgia State, from the Sun Belt. They did not have a run game to start. A&M did a really good job at holding that. And A&M flustered Brady Cook as well. 6 sacks in the game, constant pressure on him. Multiple guys with sacks in this game for Texas A&M. That defense is good over there. What they got with Mike Elko and Luther Burden. There was a big play there he had. It got, gets called back and all that stuff. But yeah, Missouri did not. That was not a good performance from Missouri. I wonder, did they get kind of exposed? We kind of made that comment about Ole Miss against Kentucky, but that was a 2017 loss. Kentucky just had a really good game, especially defensive play calling and just a game plan. But also in that game, their offense controlled the game. This was just a dominant. This was a dominant win for Texas A&M. With Missouri, now they have to travel to UMass. They don't get how that got scheduled, but so they have an opportunity to feel better about themselves going into Auburn, going in to Missouri on the 19th. But yeah, Missouri, I felt like this team was overrated going into the season. Number 9, they're not the number 9 team. So that's kind of like my thoughts on that team. But A&M definitely could be a player now in the Southeastern Conference. Let's jump around real quickly. Some other stuff. We've got 22 minutes so far. We will keep this under 30. The ACC, a couple things. I did stay up late and watch that Miami Cal game. And look, Miami's got that dude, Cam Ward, found a way. They were down 38 to 18, and they just come back. You just have a guy like that. Clemson continuing to win. Very impressed with them since the Georgia game. They're just taking care of business. Miami and Clemson are the best 2 teams in the ACC, without a doubt. But look out for SMU. I think that's a team to look out for. They beat Louisville 34 to 27. Their quarterback, since they made the quarterback change, their offense is really taking off. Kevin Jennings, 21 to 27, 281. No touchdown passes, but 281 throwing, and then he also ran for 113. Complete dual threat with this offense. I would just look out for this team. The way they're playing offensively, they're just terrific right now. And let's just look at the SMU schedule real quick. So they play Stanford this week, and then they have at Duke, Pitt, Boston College, at Virginia, and Cal. They can win all those games. So then it, just comes in interesting tiebreakers. You have a 15-team conference there with the ACC. 15. They have more than that. This is bad podcasting. This is bad me not knowing how many teams are in the actual ACC. Yeah, it's a loaded team. You have $17 there in that conference. So yeah, but so just the way it's working. Just you look at the Clemson schedule. But I think right now it looks like now Virginia's 2-0 conference. I ain't too worried about them. I do think it's Clemson, Miami, and SMU as the top 3 teams in that league. I'm just looking at the Clemson schedule right now, who they've got coming up. They play Wake Forest this week. Then they have Virginia, Louisville, Virginia Tech, Pitt, the Citadel, and South Carolina. I don't really see a team there that can beat them. You never know. Look, we just saw Vanderbilt beat Alabama, so you just never know who's going to beat who in these situations. And then let's look at a Miami schedule, what they have coming up. They have Louisville this week. That's a good team. We'll see if they can. And I mean, the last 2 weeks have been nail biters for Miami. Then they play Florida State, Duke, at Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech may be dangerous. Wake Forest at Syracuse. So we'll just see how that shakes out. That'll be interesting. Now with SMU, they are 2-0 conference, so they are undefeated. The chances are these teams are probably going to get some losses, especially SMU, but we'll see what happens with them. I guess my closing thing on just talking about games on Thursday night, and this is really for the local people listening on Wiregrass Daily News. Texas State beating Troy. Troy's now 1-5. Of course, they won the Sun Belt 2 years in a row. John Sumrall, he's now there at Tulane, doing good over there at Tulane too as well. Troy, it's a struggle right now for them, just to say it nicely. Tucker Kilcrease had some good moments in this game. He was 17 of 28, 248, 2 touchdowns. They didn't get the running game going quite like they did against Louisiana Monroe from the week prior. Really, a lot of mistakes for Troy. They could not stop Texas State for one. Jordan McLeod was 20 of 29, 252, 3 touchdowns. He did throw 2 interceptions in the game. They ran for 215 yards. So Troy just could not stop Texas State. And then Troy, they were down 14-0. They scored a touchdown. They had Texas State punting the ball. They punt the ball. They roughed the kicker. Next play, big play down the field, touchdown. It's 21-7. They had an opportunity to score. It looked like they were about to score going into halftime, and then fumble. So a lot of miscues too on Troy's side of things where they just couldn't get out of the way. But it's just amazing thing to see what's going on with them right now. And I think the last thing we're going to do here on the show today, we got about 3 minutes before we hit the 30-minute mark. Let's look at the rankings. Now, I normally probably wouldn't do this, but with just everything that happened this past Saturday, so Texas is your new number 1 with Ohio State at number 2. Oregon's 3. So now we get a 2 versus 3 matchup on Saturday night on NBC. Ohio State and Oregon. Then you have Penn State sitting there at number 4. They play USC. Georgia doesn't move. They just stay at 5. Miami goes up to 6. They move 2 spots. Alabama did drop to 7. Tennessee dropped to 8. Ole Miss jumped up 3 spots. They're at number 9. Clemson is now number 10. Iowa and Notre Dame by the AP poll, they are both tied at 11. At 13 is LSU. Just looking at SEC teams, A&M, they are at 15. Oklahoma is still sitting there at 20. And then, Missouri, they dropped 12 spots. So they were right there at number 9. So they moved down pretty far down the list. And SMU, they are 25 so far. We'll see the receiving vote. Vanderbilt received 26 votes. Arkansas received 17. Kentucky received 1 as well. And dropped out of the polls. USC dropped out. They were number 11. Louisville was 22 and UNLV was 25. So that's just kind of like your look at the SEC and the college football this weekend. It was, again, fun weekend of football. And we'll have another fun weekend this weekend, without a doubt. On Wednesday, I will be joined by Bill Bender from the Sporting News. We will kind of probably dissect even more of this and look ahead to a big weekend of college football. And the plan will be on Friday morning. I will drop some picks here on the feed. Remember, you can follow me on social media at PJordanSEC. The podcast is available on all your favorite podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you are on Apple Podcasts, please follow, rate, and review. Leave a review. I will read it on a future edition of the show. And if you leave just 4 stars, you're just a straight-up hater. You can also check out the show over at Wiregrass Daily News. You can check it out over on my YouTube channel, Phillip Jordan Sports. And check out all my written work over at Last Word on college football. Hope everybody has a great Monday. We will be back on Wednesday, and we will be chatting with Bill Bender from the Sporting News and whatever news hits in the world of college athletics, college football, because we are zeroed in. We are in the second half of the season, and we got a lot of big games headed our way. Anyways, till next time. Bye-bye.